So let my life be the proof of your love. Let my love look like you and what you made.
Tonight we're going to cover the Holy Spirit, but we're not after all, because we're going to cover something different, and I am disturbed, alarmed. This is very, very important, what I'm going to cover tonight in terms of helping parents understand where we are as a culture. And so it's not going to be the usual Bible study of going through the issues of the Holy Spirit, but I'm going to cover this book, the issues that this book brings up, and it's called The Disappearance of Childhood. The Disappearance of Childhood by Neil Postman. He wrote it in 1982, almost 40 years ago. But what he has to say is so insightful and so good. It can really, really help with our young people, with our children. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring out some of the things that he says, and then we're going to open it up for discussion. And I'm telling you, it is, in fact, I cannot cover everything that he says, but I'm telling you, it's very, very important in terms of understanding where we are, the disappearance of childhood. And I'm recommending that the elders read it, and then we're going to discuss it, how to respond with wisdom and sensitivity, because it is amazing what he brings out. The Disappearance of Childhood by Neil Postman. Actually, he wrote another one. It's called Amusing Ourselves to Death. So anyway, I'm going to be discussing that. And more so than other times, I'm going to open it up for questions and comments. It's going to be a dialogue. I'm hoping that that's what happens. So as I go through these things, you need to be really listening, and if you need to write down a question that you might have, then write it down, because I want this to be an interactive time, right? But it's very, very important to understand our culture and what is happening. What is happening? One of the most dangerous enemies are the enemies we don't see, right? If our enemy is this tiny, tiny little man that's all skinny and no muscles, but he's right next to us and we can't see him, we don't even know he's there. He can kill us and we're not even prepared. We're not ready because we can't see him. He might be totally weak, totally anemic, but he's super dangerous because we don't see him. And sometimes what's happening in our culture is exactly that. That things are happening in us, around us, to our young people, and we have no idea what's happening. And by the time we know it, we have all kinds of problems, broken families, and all this stuff that happens, right? And our youth can be super confused. They have passions inside, they have conflict inside, and they don't know what to do with it. And we as parents can throw money at it and do all kinds of things, but we're lost, you see. And this book, The Disappearance of Childhood, I highly recommend it, even for you teens as well. I mean, it's just an amazing book. And now, the guy is super educated. He's a communication professor. So sometimes he uses big words. So if you're going to read it, you might want to have a dictionary next to you. Okay, what does that mean by that word? And look it up. But I'm telling you, it's worth the work to read through it. And for us parents especially, and grandparents, my goodness. Anyway, so here it is. I'm going to be giving some things that he says, and then I'm going to open up for discussion. All right? So just, be ready. Childhood, just as a background, childhood in the Dark Ages, just a background, 800s, 900s, all the way to 1200s, 1300s, was called the Dark Ages. And at that time, children were treated as adults. Everything was pretty much the same. The children got up to work at, age 5, 6. They were already working the fields, working the mines, everything. They got exposed to everything like adults. Everybody had the same information, right? There was no separation of childhood and adults. So everything was communicated. Sexual or violence or whatever, that's the way it was. And then childhood was, some people say, well, it was discovered. No, it was brought to the forefront. The scriptures talk about childhood or children, right? When I was a child, I thought like a child. Now that I'm a man, I think differently. Children are to be taught the elementary things of the world, right? The do's and don'ts of life, right? But in culture, it was brought to the forefront, he brings out, by the printing press. The printing press around 1400. Okay, because the printing press now you had all these symbols to read. And who knew how to read? Very, very few people knew how to read. So then there was this need to learn how to read. And who learned how to read? Well, it's those who could afford it. And so the adults began to read. And so then there was a distinction between those that had information and those that did not. And so then the childhood began to kind of become to the forefront. Hey, children need to be taught certain things because they don't know how to read. And so then, some children, you need to begin with the ABCs, and you begin to a little bit more complex sentences and complex thoughts. Abstract thinking now are for the mature, right? So then the whole concept of childhood was brought to the forefront. And all of a sudden, we have schools, depending on the age group. We have childhood laws concerning labor. They have to be a certain age before they can be in the mines now. You have to protect them. And so this whole concept of childhood was brought to the forefront. And laws were made, a lot of laws, and it was about 300 or 400 years of this. So there was a great distinction between children and adults. It was the access of information by being able to read. If you were not able to read, you stayed, quote unquote, immature. It was those that could read that could begin to think abstractly and become to think more deeply. You see? But, and the issues of violence and the issue of sexual things, it was those who could read. Now, this is a generalization, but the population in general, that was a thing, right? You could read, became an adult. You couldn't read, you stayed immature. And children couldn't read, so you got to protect them, so you got books according to their age, right? And we still have first grade, second grade, and kindergarten, and so forth, right? So we have this differentiation. But there was a big change that started to occur, and this change came with communication being different now. And the big one, it had already started before, but the big one was television. Television. And Postman brings this out really amazing. I mean, you got to read. I'm going to do a very poor job of representing this book, really, but I'm trying to hit the high points. Television, the media, and of course, when he wrote in 1982, there was no internet, no cell phones. Media was, television. And so what he has to say is 10 times more than today. So the coming of the media, television communication has drastically changed things, right? Drastically changed things. reading, when you have to read, you have to think. And you have to think linearly. And you can get to the point that you can think complex things. You see? Because you have to learn language. And sometimes big words and the sentence structure and so forth when you read. But with the television, you don't have to read. You don't have to read. So you see a picture and it creates an emotion. You see? If I tell you, I begin to describe to you, there's this 6-year-old little boy, and he is naked, and he is crying, and he has a big belly, a really big belly. As I say all those things, you have to, your imagination, like, oh, 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 oh. You begin to get the picture. You're thinking, right? But if, boom, I show you a picture, you don't have to think. You feel something. So thinking goes down, and emotions come out. And we begin to get used to that, where we don't think anymore. I just want to feel, 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 feel. You see? And he wrote in the 80s. No internet, no cell phones. Amazing. But the reality is, and I've said it, that we are no longer a thinking nation. We are a feeling nation. So now, because with the television, in television, you can't stay long with one person just talking there, right? Why? Because the viewer is like, oh, this is boring. Click the channel. So the television knows, change image, change this, change the topic, this and this and this. Or you're like, because they have to keep your attention, right? And they have to make it exciting enough for you to watch the television. Because if it's not exciting, you want to watch television? You want to watch that show? No. No. It's boring, right? So, over time, the effects on us is that we stop thinking as much and start needing to feel and to feel and to feel. We can no longer stay focused and thinking hard on something. We're not used to that. Because we've been programmed to feel, immediate, right now, boom, boom, boom. What's the next excitement thing? Amazing that this has happened. And so now we have all the mental HDHD, all the different ways, mental issues. Because we're hooked on feeling, on the buzz, you see? And our children get this by the tons. By the tons. This was back when Stephanie and Gabriel were in first grade. I remember visiting their schoolroom, and I was tired by the time I got out of there. And I didn't understand why. It's only till later that I began to think, why was I so tired? You know why? Because we walked into the classroom, and I'm telling you, there were pictures everywhere. I'm talking about the ceiling, never mind the walls. Everywhere, like. And I had no idea other than I had to see everything. And our children eat and drink this stuff all the time. And we adults get this a lot. Is it any wonder that our attention span is so short? Because we're being used to all these images and feeling and feeling and feeling. And our thinking goes down. And our need to feel goes up, exponentially up. So, to the extent that one watches TV or internet or any image media, to that degree, thinking shrinks. Thinking shrinks. There is a loss of linear thinking and the ability to think abstractly. That is, we can't think deeply anymore. It's too much work to think deeply. Neil Postman in an interview saying the Douglas Lincoln debates, 7 hours of debate. Can you imagine today having 7 hours of debate between only 2 guys? Are you kidding me? 3 hours of debate. That was the norm. 3 hours of argument. And the sentences were complex. Today, 3 minutes is too much. Unbelievable. And that's what we have today. So to the degree that we see media, we're used to media, images, to that thinking to that degree our thinking shrinks. We can't think deeply anymore. So now what happens is, not only that, but now children have the same access to what adults have. Remember the distinction? Those who could read became more adult-like. They were more abstract thinking and understood more and so forth, what children couldn't read, and that was a big distinction. And then there was a development of, okay, let's develop these children as they can, right? You don't give them a book of, senior high to a second grader. You can't, you don't. As age appropriate, right? But now, our young people have access to violence and sex. I mean, it's just free, right? So, if they have that, the young people may not say it verbally, but here's the deal. You used to have all the information, I didn't, so you had authority over me, right? Information is power and authority. But now, I have the same information you do. You have nothing over me. You have nothing over me. The same things you know, I know. So, why should I listen to you? Right? Oh, but you have to. Why? Because I say so. Does not work in the heart. We might get them to behave because we have physical authority or financial authority, but we have no authority in their heart. And having the same violence and sexual images that everyone else has, childhood is disappearing, right? Childhood is disappearing. The television cannot say, okay, only children can watch this. Only adults can watch this. Nope. It's a programming. And television is for making money. Television is, let's get an audience together. The content doesn't matter. As long as we get the audience together. Because if we have an audience together, then the advertisers are going to pay us money. So whatever it takes. So, let's just entertain. Let's make it funny. Let's make it violent. Let's make it sexual. Let's make it controversy. Whatever it is, as long as they click the TV on and, advertisers, they make money. The TV doesn't care as long as they get an audience together. You see? So with that, shame is diminished. Shame is diminished because, well, everybody's seeing that. Everybody's saying that. What's the deal? So now use the F word. Now show skin. There's shame in that. Because everybody has the information. Everybody has the information. What, are you nuts? I mean, you're so out of date. What's the big deal? So shame goes out the window. Shame is greatly diminished. So nudity and foul language has become less and less of an issue with the majority today. And we see that, right? I remember when our kids were young and we would go take them to the basketball game, or one time we went to the Boys and Girls Club here in Edinburgh to playing basketball. I don't know what it was. And I said, okay, wow, all these people. And then they started singing, and then says, did you hear that? What? F and this and F and that and the music. And like, oh, man, what is that? We went to the adults. Hey, oh, that offends you? Okay, we'll turn it down. And this was years ago, guys. And most of it, I'm not saying anything new. I'm really not saying anything new. It's just bringing it out, right? That this is where we are. Shame is gone because everybody has the information of violence and sex. And our young people are like, they're inundated with this. So children claim, maybe not verbally, but in their heart, I've got the same authority as you do. You've got nothing over me. They have the same information as adults do, and maybe even more. They're more technologically savvy, right? So children are adultified. Children are adultified. And at the same time, adults are childified, become children. It's amazing. And this guy points out in the way young people dress, in the way they talk, right? You go to the Walmart and you go to the children's section. The same as adults. And you go to their summer wear. It's lingerie. No more shame. And the language. I mean, if any of you work in the marketplace, if you go out in some job in the secular world, people joke about sex and people joke about, use the F word like nothing, right? The B word, the S word, the A word, it's like nothing. And people in their 40s and 50s, they're using it like nothing, like children. And the children are doing the same. The language is... This afternoon I was having coffee. I don't go to Starbucks, but we had a meeting and they wanted to go to Starbucks. Okay, Starbucks. And we were sitting outside. This car after car goes by, boom, 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 F and this and F and that. Okay, I wanted to have Starbucks outside, but man, and no big deal. I was the only one that was like, anybody like, no big deal, right? So, in our language, young people are adultified, older people are childified. In our dress, children are dressing like adults, and some adults are dressing like teeny boppers, and sometimes it's embarrassing. And even some of the children, it's like, Mom, Dad, come on, are you for real? But that's the way it is. And it's all around us, only we need to see it for what it is. You see? And it's just amazing. And all of this means that technology has become our God. Because technology, it's in images, we don't have to think hard about God and wrath and the relationship and the deep things of the, no, it's immediate. And he points out that the television has taken up the issues of religion, issues and themes of religion, like sin, salvation, and heaven. They don't call it that, but that's what it is. Sin, you have bad breath. Salvation, this new technology of breath freshener is your salvation. You use it in what? Clean teeth and happy, wonderful, wonderful relationships. Everybody's happy. Heaven, bliss. Take any commercial. They present you with a problem, salvation, bliss afterwards. It's just amazing. You know, what, you have that old car? You have that old TV? Wow, your children are missing out. But Samsung has come with this awesome technology. And when you buy that one, everybody's going to be happy. You can watch it in all the rooms, and everybody's going to be happy. Bliss. And we are not even aware that they're preaching at us. Amazing. We're not even aware. And our children less, because remember, images, we think less, we feel more. It's mind-boggling, the effects that's going on. So, of course, he brings examples from the 80s, right? Some of you are old enough to remember the commercials about ring around the collar. Anybody? Nobody. Wow. You remember these two guys. Okay, so what was the deal? Guys on their collar always have a ring around the collar. They're dirty. And so what was the deal? You're laughing because you know it's true. Pete, you're sinning by having a bad collar, dirty collar. And how do they present it? So the husband and wife, they go to a restaurant, they sit down, and the waitress looks, and it's like, the husband has a dirty collar. Like, oh my goodness, embarrassment. And she's like, what? And she's like, disgusted with him. It's like, again? Why can't you clean your collar? Salvation, cheers, this detergent. Oh, and the wife uses it, and the next time the waitress comes like, oh yeah. Oh, yeah, buddy, bliss, yeah. Amazing. Commercial after commercial after commercial. Remember, television is not so much to communicate content, is to bring an audience together, right? So, listen to this. He brings it out. Even the news, it's about getting an audience together. It's not about the content. So, what do they do with the news time? Music to begin with, right? Any network, any news, music. This is a show, right? And then here's another fact, like the news. And he brings it out. He says, you know, they can bring out news of terrible, terrible consequences. There was an earthquake in Mexico City. They believe that, you know, 100,000 people probably died. And now this. Now here's a commercial on Jordache jeans. And this hippie girl comes out and, oh, what? 100,000 just died and you're talking about jeans? And we get used to that. Discontinuity. In other words, it really doesn't matter. Nothing matters. It's just to get you to click on so that then the commercials can come on and the advertiser can pay them. They don't care. As long as it's just boom, 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 it's a show. It's a show. So we get used to nothing is really important. Big deal. But how can we get people to listen in? So now we have commentators. It's this news. It's a bunch of people giving their own opinions. But news, news. It's all a show. It's all a show. But we get duped into thinking that we're getting something important. But it's all a show. And the effects is that we end up not taking anything serious. Nothing is really serious, right? It's just as long as I'm entertained. And sad to say that the church in general has fallen into that, right? Let's put on a show. The point is getting an audience. It's not really about developing people, helping them think hard, helping them wrestle, helping them work through things. No. Immediate good feelings, immediate salvation, immediate solutions. Because that's what we've been trained by the media, by television, by internet, by Instagram. And we don't even know, and our children and ourselves are being poisoned in ways that we have no idea. Is television automatically bad? No, don't. No, it's the amount, and it's what we do with it. And when we're not aware, no wonder our children are always dissatisfied. Always, always, always dissatisfied, other than 30 seconds when they get a new toy or a new buzz at something. It's mind-boggling. We can't think anymore for long periods of time. So I put this on our Facebook, and I said, anybody left out there that's willing to think hard and read? You know how many people responded? 3. There's my answer. Hardly anybody's left. Amazing. He brings out that, now children are in commercials and they're 10 to 15 years old being put as very sensual and sexual, and it's okay. It's okay. And the adults are going along. And I thought, that's right. I look at commercial and it's like, oh my goodness. So yesterday, I don't know if it was Facebook or Drudge Report or something. And I said, let me pay attention. And sure enough, you know what I saw? Swimming pool. Lots of people around. Children, 4 or 5 years old, sitting in the lap. There's this girl over here in a swimsuit, showing more than she should. There's a guy over there with incredible muscles, and so he begins to look at the woman and like, oh. So he begins to exercise all this amazing thing, and the woman is like, all right. So now she gets all excited. She jumps in the water, and all this, stuff going on. All right. So now the man says, oh, you can do that? Okay. So he starts dancing on a pole. All right? A pole. You know what the image is. And he's going at it. Oh, my goodness. So then the woman starts in the water, all kinds of stuff. And you see the pictures, and the 3 and 4-year-olds are like, and the adults are like, all around the swimming pool. No differentiation. No difference. And everybody's okay. You know what happens at the end? They're embracing each other, and everybody's going like, no shame, no nothing. Okay. Amazing, amazing. And we're desensitized. Well, that's not bad, but really? Really? So, that's where we are. Now, I had told Renee and John White that I want to have them read it, and let's get together and discuss. What's a wise way to respond? Because, what? You throw out the TV? You throw out the internet? How's that going to help? Because it's everywhere, right? Take away the phone, and your children get offered better phones by their friends. Like, what?
So let my life be